direct application, making sure that that application is completed. We are actually, I should have just mentioned, we are going to be recording this webinar because we want to make sure that you can go back to it and refer for reference. And if somebody missed it today, we'll be sending that to them as well. If you would prefer, if you want to have a question or something and you prefer not to be on camera, please feel free to shut off your camera. You could just put your questions in the chat. So just in terms of where we're looking at to go with this information, we want to make sure that you're aware of all of the 4 phases, what the different steps are. Also, this is a really important year in terms of increasing the impact because the new law came into effect, AB 469, which is making sure that all students, high school seniors, apply for their FAFSA or DREAM application. But we have a special lens that we're bringing to that, right? And making sure that students are all in for financial aid, including undocumented students. And there's some specific areas that we think are important for everyone to be aware of in order to make that happen. And we're really, really thrilled that we'll be able to share the space today with the California Student Aid Commission, who organizes and coordinates all the California DREAM Act applications and is an excellent partner in terms of trying to make sure that the word gets out to undocumented students. So I'm going to, we definitely want to welcome you. I think there's not that many people in the chat. So there's not that many people in the room. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and just ask everybody, I'll just call in a couple of people. And if you can just say your name, the school that you're from, and maybe just one word that you're thinking of around providing financial aid or increasing the impact of financial aid for undocumented students, that would be great. So I'm going to start with Victoria, Erica, and Patricia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria. I'm from the California Student Aid Commission, and my one word is commitment.
Thank you. Erica Morales, are you able to go? Maybe while Erica's getting her sound going, we could go with Patricia and then Catherine. Your name, your school, and your one word.
Oh, well, okay. Am I talking right now?
It's you, girl.
Oh, sorry. I'm new. I've only been here like 3 weeks, so this is new. Yeah. So I'm Patricia Gutierrez, and I'm from Bakersfield College Financial Aid Department. And I think my word would be commitment. There's so many to pick, but that's a good one.
That's a good one. Okay, great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
I work at Ohlone Community College, the transfer center. My word is opportunity.
Excellent. Good one. So Rhiannon, Sylvia, and then Paola Sotelo. Could you guys go next?
Hi, everybody. My name is Rhiannon Carvajal Killian, and I work for an education nonprofit, Contigo Ed. And my one word is it'll be 2, awareness and activate.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Paola. I work for Marysville Joint Unified School District in Northern California. My one word is impactful.
Sylvia, are you able to go? Okay, let's maybe go with Natalia, and Anne.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nishelly Antonio. I am with TRIO with the Educational Opportunity Center within Fresno State. My one word would be inclusion.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalie, and I'm a college and career advisor at Rudsdale High School in Oakland. My word is access.
Thank you. Go with Anne Amirani. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, in Ruby. Anne saying, I don't have a mic, but I work at Shasta Community College and my name is Synergy. My word is synergy, sorry. Thank you. Amirani and Ruby, and then Wendy. If you could just say your name, your school in one word, or your organization. Okay, guess that's not working. So like, how about Wendy, Stephanie, and Lisa? While those other guys are coming in.
Hi there, Wendy Duran from College Access Plan, and I also had the word access in mind.
Excellent. Okay.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Blanco with Santa Clara University, and mine would be resources.
Resources, excellent. Yeah. Lisa, Erica, and Areli.
Hi, I'm Lisa DePauli, and I work at SDSU in Imperial Valley in Calexico. And my word would be hope.
Hope. Excellent. Good words. Erica Morales and Areli.
I'm sorry, I had to step away. Erica Morales from Golden West College Financial Aid Office. And I'm sorry, what else am I supposed to say?
Just one word when you're thinking about increasing the impact of financial aid.
Inclusion.
Inclusion, great.
Can you hear me? I think I'm next.
Yep, you're next.
Hi,
Great.
everyone. Sorry, I'm moving from one to another one. My name is Valeria Patiño Rodriguez. My pronouns she, her, hers. I work for the Grad Study program at Fullerton College, and my word is determination.
I'm sorry, your word is what?
Determination.
Excellent.
Determine.
Yeah, great. I just didn't hear you. Thank you so much. Lizette, Helfin, and Cindy.
Hello, my name is Lizette Rocha. I work at Las Positas College Financial Aid, and my word is opportunities.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heflin Barrera. I'm the manager for CalSoap at Bakersfield College, and my word is awareness.
Nice. Cindy, you going? Liliana says, my name is Liliana, and I'm part of the Inland Empire Immigrant Youth Coalition, and my word is equity. And then Anthony and Madeline, I don't think you've gone yet.
Hi, how you guys doing? Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Grant. I'm the undocumented liaison at Gavilan College, and I would have to say optimistic.
Optimistic, excellent. Thank you. Madeline? Okay. I'm at the library, but Madeline with Immigrants Rising, and my word is training. And Lupe, did you get to go? Did I miss anybody? I'm sorry, this has been a little bit.
Can I go?
Please.
Sorry, my name is Ruby. I'm sorry about earlier. I had issues with my microphone. So I am the financial aid specialist here at Mills at Northeastern in Oakland, California. And my word is opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Did I miss anyone? Anybody else want to go?
Hi, I'm so sorry. I just returned from the restroom.
Oh, thank you. Welcome back.
With what's going on. My name is Amairani Ochoa. I am from Citrus College. And the word I can think of is hope. We just started our new club, and the title of the club is the Hope Club. So yeah, hope.
Great, congratulations. That's good to hear. Thank you so much.
Hi, sorry, I joined in a little bit late too.
Welcome.
But my name is Lupe Rodriguez, and I'm a financial aid advisor here at Cabrillo College.
Great. We're so glad that all of you are here. Thank you so much. Really exciting. Thank you for your commitment, for your time, for your energy in being here. And we're going to continue with the show. So in terms of who's going to be presenting today, myself, Nancy Judaitis. I'm a director of higher education at Immigrants Rising. I'm a former financial aid counselor and undocumented student advisor. And I'm really committed not only just to making sure that students apply for financial aid, but they receive all of the financial aid they have eligibility for, and building institutional practices to make that happen. And I'm really excited to be here with my colleague, Victoria. Victoria, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Victoria Bixney. I'm a trainer at the California Student Aid Commission, and I'm really excited to be partnering with Immigrants Rising, Nancy and Madeline. So we've been doing a few events this month, and it's been really great working with them.
Thank you so much. We're glad you're here. And then I'm also lucky that Madeline Villanueva, the higher education manager at Immigrants Rising, is here providing support in the background. So shout out to Madeline. Thanks a lot for just helping with all of the questions. If you have any technical difficulties, just reach out to Madeline. Also, if she's going to be monitoring the chat. So if we miss something in the chat, she's going to chime in with that and make sure that we're aware of it. But also, if you have a question and you're not catching it, then feel free to unmute yourself and let us know what your question is so that we can move forward. In terms of the agenda for today, I'm just going to do a little bit of creating a common understanding and sort of level setting in terms of definitions, and just kind of a little bit about the current state of undocumented students in California. We'll be really lucky that Victoria is going to give us a status of the California DREAM Act numbers as they stand as of January. And we'll be talking a little bit about the new legislation, the AB 469, as well as the update to in-state tuition policy and AB 540. We'll be taking a short break at the top of the hour, and then we're going to come back to talk about common roadblocks to avoid, tools to support you and your students, and then some opportunities to talk about how we can put this into practice. And we will do a quick evaluation at the end before we do a closing, and there's some updates coming through. So we're excited that you're all here. And in terms of our goals for today, we really want to make sure that you're equipped with specific language and messaging that increases student comfort and participation. I think sometimes, we can just use words that we might not even realize are being offsetting, such as like, did you apply for the FAFSA, right? Because if students didn't apply for the FAFSA, our next question is going to be why. We want to increase awareness of the requirements and some of the common challenges or pitfalls that students fall into that prevent them from receiving their aid through the California DREAM Act. We're going to share some resources that we have that support undocumented students when applying for financial aid, and just tips all around to promote more equity around financial aid applications. So before we get started, we would like to just do a quick pre-assessment to kind of see where people are at in terms of if you agree or disagree with the following statements. Madeline's just going to drop in the menti.com. You can use code 4339201, 4339201. If you could just go ahead and vote and let us know whether you disagree or agree with the following statements. As you guys are answering that, I'll just kind of pull that up. See if people have responded so far, where you're at in terms of whether you agree or strongly agree. Madeline, can you see that now? So this looks great in terms of the number of people that have, well, 3 people have responded, and they are looking at, can you guys see this response as well? Yes, okay. So people seems like they feel pretty comfortable using the language and messaging, and then that that they promote equity in financial aid applications. That's really great to see. And they think that they're looking for a little bit, it seems like there could be a little bit more in terms of strategies to increase student follow through in completing all the steps. And people are pretty in the middle in terms of a little bit over 50% in terms of being aware of resources that can expand, students' awareness. So we hope that through today that we're going to be able to bring those numbers over, and that you will feel more comfortable in terms of getting the strategies that you need, being aware of resources, and using languaging and messaging. So thank you so much for participating in that. If you haven't done it yet, you can still go ahead and participate in the poll, and it's Madeline threw that into the chat if you missed it. So in terms of creating a common understanding, I think it's just really important. I'm going to be talking a lot about FAFSA and DREAM. I wanted to just start off in terms of who can apply for which application. Some of you are pretty familiar with this. For others, it might be kind of just getting a little bit more clarity on the pieces. We have this great resource Madeline can throw that in the chat as well in terms of who should be applying for the DREAM Act. California DREAM Act is for students who are undocumented, students who have DACA, students who are U visa holders, as well as the students who have TPS or temporary protected status. So really important in terms of students, that's the population that should be applying for the California DREAM Act. And as we'll talk about with more details, students should meet the eligibility for AB 540 by the time they're actually going to be receiving their financial aid, because that is a requirement of the California DREAM Act as the law was written. In terms of who should be applying for the FAFSA application, students who are citizens should apply for the FAFSA, as well as students who are citizens, even if their parents are undocumented, should still be applying for the FAFSA application. We'll be talking about a resource later on that actually delineates some of those specific steps students who are citizens but whose parents are undocumented should take to create protection and just a clear process for them to receive all the financial aid they have eligibility for. Legal permanent residents should also be applying for the FAFSA, eligible non-citizens according to all the FAFSA definitions, and anybody with a T visa holder. Excuse me. So that's just in terms of like when we're throwing around FAFSA and DREAM, the California DREAM Act application, which we also refer to as the DREAM application. This is kind of how students should be applying for that information. And then we wanted to kind of ground you in terms of when we use the term undocumented at Immigrants Rising, this is what we mean. We talk about individuals who entered without inspection, meaning people who crossed the border and didn't have permission to enter. But we're also talking about individuals who entered with a legal status, came on a visa, maybe, and then overstayed their visa. And the reason we want to make sure that we're talking about this is because oftentimes now there's actually more undocumented individuals who came because they overstayed their visa in the United States than entered without inspection. So just thinking about that, we don't always know sort of that there's a variety in terms of the way that individuals come to this country. And then those who are also currently in the process of legalizing, as well as those who are for DACA, we are also considering them in the undocumented status because until they actually, DACA does not have a path towards citizenship. And while it provides temporary protections, it does not, students are still using the California DREAM Act application to apply. And we're also talking about vulnerable immigrants, so individuals who have TPS status or U visa holders. As we've heard in the news, this is often up and down. And so while they might have a couple of series of protections, we're also talking about individuals who could easily fall out of status.
Nancy, there's a question on the chat about a student with a juvenile visa. Which one do they apply for?
If a student has a juvenile visa, it depends on the different visa that the student would have. If you're talking about it, I need to know, I think it would be important to take a look at the visa specifically. Oftentimes, if students have a visa that is a non-immigrant visa, meaning that they're not going to be able to, they're here, but they're just temporarily here, that they're not eligible to apply for either financial aid application. But if you wanted to also just email me and give me more details about that afterwards, I'd be glad to take a look at the options with more details. And when you look at the FAFSA application, it delineates who can do it. And when you look at some of the information that we have around AB 540, such as our AB 540 guide, it talks about which visas are eligible to be able to use the DREAM application versus the FAFSA, or unfortunately, in some cases, neither application, and then they just be using scholarships to apply for school. And then just in terms of like how many undocumented students we're talking about, there's actually about 98,000 students that are graduating from high school every year nationwide. And these, ever since Trump rescinded DACA in 2017, they have had no access to DACA. I think what's also really interesting for us is that 1/3 of those individuals actually live in California. And so at least 33,000 students each year are graduating from California high schools that are undocumented. And I think the part that's also really important to be thinking about is what about students who don't graduate but were in high school or an adult school? So how many students are actually pushed out of school before they could actually graduate, but could benefit from higher education if they had the opportunity. Also, just thinking about, we think about many people in the state think about California as being so progressive in terms of supporting undocumented students in higher education, and we are. But if we think about the number of undocumented individuals in California, over 3 million, if you pull that out by the census data, there's between 400,000 that are between the ages of 16 and 24, which is sort of like the common college age that people are looking at, or the closest one within the census that we can. But as of 2019, only 92,000 students, undocumented students, were enrolled in California, which means that's only 21.6% of college age youth that were attending college in California. So I'm glad that all of you are here today, because financial aid is often the biggest challenge that undocumented students face, or accessing financial aid and being able to go to school and achieve their educational goals. So that's why we're really glad that you're here to talk about the DREAM Act today. And then in terms of where students are, of those 92,000, the majority you can see are in California community colleges, about 10 to 12,000 in the CSUs, and only 3 to 5,000 or 3,000, almost 4 to 5,000 in the UCs, which actually have the largest amount of financial support and institutional support for undocumented students. We're not really sure kind of where the numbers are for all of the independent colleges and universities. And this isn't really counting for community college non-credit courses or adult schools, which is also another big pathway, especially into the community colleges, for students and undocumented students to be able to enter into higher education. I think the thing that's also really important to be thinking about is the diversity of undocumented students. And so often if you're listening to the news, apart from thinking that everybody's coming over the border, is actually really recognizing that not all undocumented students are Latinx, and not all undocumented immigrants within the United States are Latinx. There's actually about 25% of undocumented students are Asian and Pacific Islander students, and about 12.5% are Black and undocumented students. And there's also a population of white undocumented students as well. So really important that we're not just looking to like one specific population in the room and only talking over here. And if you're having some struggles in terms of reaching out to those students or building better, increasing inclusivity or more effectively supporting Black undocumented students, Immigrants Rising was really lucky to be able to work with Asian and Pacific Islander students and professionals, as well as recent graduates and Black undocumented students, to be able to create these guides, which I think are really powerful guides and give excellent information to help you increase your knowledge, gather specific techniques, and expand opportunities for all undocumented students. The California Student Aid Commission, neither the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application ask for race. So we are not able to identify that by race, but we do know that these students are actually specifically underserved in many different areas. And so we want to make sure that we can increase that support, especially as financial aid counselors. I found that I often saw a lot more students at the financial aid counselor than would come to undocumented student events that we had. So increasing our awareness about that can be really important too. And then just thinking about the multiple pathways that undocumented students take to college, in terms of, I think often we're thinking about a lot of these students are kind of like coming straight from high school and going into college, but a lot of students are coming from adult school, non-credits. There are also students who are actually in graduate school, and even though they did all that work to try to be able to receive AB 540 and financial aid at the undergraduate, are now struggling to receive that at the graduate level. I do want to mention that the California DREAM Act and state university grants at the CSU are available at the graduate level. At the UCs, graduate students are actually required to look for private funding, for departmental funding, or for university-specific funding. They don't have, the university grant is not available, but it is important for us to be thinking about how we can make sure that students who want to go on to graduate school know that there is financial aid available. And for all of this, I think it's just really important that we make our support visible. I like this, we used to have this old poster from Immigrants Rising. UWD has put out this great "I'm an Unafraid Ally," but this person right here, I love it. Like all they just did is like, dear undocumented students, in this classroom, there are no walls. And I just would ask each of you to be thinking about at your financial aid counselor, in your counseling room, when you go out and do outreach, when you're working with students, how is that support visible that you have for undocumented students? Because when I used to do recruiting for San Francisco State, I just put a sign right on the table that says SF State supports undocumented students, because we were building more institutional practices, and students who weren't even going to come to our school would come up and ask me questions because they're looking for clues and information that it's safe to apply for financial aid. So yeah, so that's sort of just kind of a quick roundabout of those pieces. And I'm going to pass it on now to my colleague, Victoria, who's going to talk more about the California DREAM Act applications and their status.
Yeah, so thank you, Nancy, for all that good information. So I'm going to kind of walk through some numbers now. And we have some different graphics that will kind of show the breakdown of applicants and how our numbers are looking for this year. So can we go ahead to the next slide, please? All right. So as Nancy mentioned, there is about 92,000 undocumented students in California. That's, correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, that's just high school seniors, right? Graduating seniors for 92,000?
No, 92,000 is all of the number of enrolled college students in colleges and universities in California.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And so then 40% of those, however, don't even apply to the DREAM Act application. So maybe they aren't aware of it. Maybe they are nervous about putting their information on a government application. And then of the 60% of those students who did apply, 60% were not offered aid of the students that did apply. And then it keeps funneling down smaller and smaller to the fact that the students that were eligible and offered, 30% did not receive their state aid. So we're kind of looking at how this funnels down and where those barriers are being created. Yeah, so right off the bat, just so many students aren't even applying. They're not even putting an application into the system, so we can't even determine if they are eligible for Cal Grant or other state financial aid. And then some students won't be eligible. Maybe their income's too high, their GPA is too low. We are working on reducing those barriers with our upcoming Cal Grant reform, which is very exciting. But then even if the student is awarded, there's still thousands of students who are not receiving that money that they're eligible for because there's additional barriers. Maybe they're not doing that AB 540 affidavit. They're not aware of it. They don't know that they need to turn it into their admissions office. And then also creating a Web Grants for Students account, which I'll cover in a little bit later on in this presentation. So yeah, just kind of having this image in your head of knowing the funnel and where the roadblocks are and where it's preventing students getting that money that they're eligible for.
Victoria, just before you continue, there's actually a question on the chat.
Oh, okay.
It's about if a student is undocumented now and then applies for CADA by March, but then they get their eligible visa or permanent residency once the school year has started. Should they submit a FAFSA right away, or should they wait until the next school year's FAFSA application opens?
Submit a FAFSA right away. So if they have gained permanent residency, they're not now eligible for FAFSA, definitely submit it right away. And then they will need to work with their financial aid office at their college so that they can submit a form to us, to CSAC, to convert it. And the reason why we want to make sure they submit right away is that then they could become eligible for federal money, so they could receive more grants, more free money than through applying to the DREAM Act. But yeah, great question.
Yeah, I would only add to that too, Victoria, that if a student is not sure exactly when their paperwork is going to come through, it might make sense to apply for the California DREAM Act first, and then change it once their application actually comes through. Like if they're like, oh, it's going to come in by summer, no probs, then definitely go ahead and apply for the FAFSA. If they're concerned about that, I might consider applying for the California DREAM Act first. Once that residency comes through, they'd be able to switch the application like Victoria's saying, and then actually be able to receive their federal aid on top of their state aid too.
Yes.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense too, Victoria,
I
to you?
think the question was saying they've already applied to the DREAM Act. So yes, definitely still apply to the DREAM Act. Like Nancy said, if it's coming up like pretty soon, they know, it's still important to submit the DREAM Act so that they can get a timestamp before March 2nd. Because then CSAC and the Financial Aid Office will look at that original timestamp from the DREAM Act for when then they can switch over to the FAFSA, if that makes sense. So if they, the permanent residency is coming up, maybe like in the summer, still submit a DREAM Act application before March 2nd so they can be considered for Cal Grant. And then once all the paperwork has gone through, then submit a FAFSA for that same school year.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Good questions. All right. So this chart just shows some application rates during the pandemic. So we know with COVID, the rates did drop greatly, unfortunately, and the FAFSA numbers did drop during the pandemic compared 2020 to 2021. However, our DREAM Act application numbers, it's way bigger of a difference, and we are still trying to recover from that. And so I'm really glad, as Nancy mentioned, I'm really glad you all are on this webinar today and learning more about how you can promote the DREAM Act application and ensure your students are aware of it and feel comfortable applying, and then also following up to get that money. So yeah, this graph just shows that really big difference between FAFSA and DREAM Act and the decline. And then next slide, please.
Oops, sorry, that was just the article that is referring to.
Gotcha. All right, and then the enrolled students, so yeah, there's that 92,000 number again, and right now, let's see my screen. So as of January 22nd, there's only been 11,000, a little over 11,000 DREAM Act applications submitted. So that's pretty painful. That's a huge amount of students that are not putting their name in the system, right? There's no way for us to be able to award them their free money if they don't submit an application and go through our system. So yeah, really getting the word out. We still have a couple more weeks before March 2nd, and that would be to qualify for an entitlement Cal Grant. But we also have other aid options available, and a lot of institutions have their own types of aid for AB 540 students. All right. And then here's some data from our research team. So this was pulled right at the end of January, and it's showing that we are doing okay. We are increasing the amount of applications submitted, right? So the 23-24 cycle, we're up about 11.6% for the FAFSA applications submitted. And then 3.3% for CADA. However, in our all staff meeting just this morning, our executive director brought up, okay, yeah, it's looking good compared to last year, but that's still not better than where we were pre-pandemic. So just kind of keeping that in perspective is, yeah, we are increasing the numbers, and that's very important. We don't want to overlook that, but knowing that the outlook is still a little bleak because we still haven't gotten back to pre-COVID application rates. Yeah, and then, so yeah, that graph was for all of California. And then this table is for potential high school entitlement. So those are our graduating senior class, the current class right now. And FAFSA has seen a huge increase, which probably is because we do have that AB 469 now, which is, encouraging all high school seniors to submit an application. CADA is also up, which is good, but it's still a very small percentage of our overall attendance, overall high school students who could be eligible and apply for the DREAM Act application. So it's good, and also we still need to put in a lot of work, and I know that you all are doing an amazing job, and probably a huge part of why our increase is still happening, even though we are facing so many other challenges. So yeah.
Really important. Thank you so much. I think seeing these numbers, Victoria, is just really important to be able to get a better sense of kind of where we're at. And like you said, I am glad to see that there has been a squeaking up of the numbers. But if we kind of think again about the 33,000 graduating high school seniors that we are seeing that are coming from California high schools each year, and if only 4,000 have applied kind of as of the date from January 22nd, we still have a huge way to go, right, before the end of the March 2nd deadline. And also just thinking about how, like this is the year where all seniors are supposed to be applying. And so there has been a really big jump with FAFSA, but I think about the part of that is how does that happen for individuals? Like, are there only FAFSA nights? Or are there financial aid nights, FAFSA and DREAM? Is there kind of equity in terms of how those applications are stated? So I see a couple of questions that are in the chat. And I want to answer them. I also just want to take a moment too for everybody to kind of just sort of reflect a little bit on some of those numbers themselves. But the first question is, do you know if AB 469 applies to juniors that may graduate early or only seniors? My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Victoria, is that this is for individuals who are considered high school seniors, meaning that they're graduating seniors is the way that they're talking about it. So it might kind of depend on how that student falls. But all students who will be graduating this year should be filling out the California DREAM Act application. And if they can, do it by March 2nd. If they can't, definitely still should apply. But Cal Grants, if they're not going to a community college, Cal Grants are off the table if they don't apply by the March 2nd deadline. I also saw another question, which is just, I have a few students who will not be AB 540 eligible by March 2nd, but will be eligible for their graduation date. Should they apply for the CADA? Definitely. Definitely apply for the California DREAM Act application. They only need to make sure that they have their AB 540 requirements fulfilled by the time they're getting ready to enter into their higher education institution. And for many high school seniors, they're not eligible yet because they haven't graduated from high school. So they need to kind of come around the block, graduate, but definitely meet that March 2nd deadline. But I did just want to get some responses quickly in terms of how do those numbers, like, are those numbers surprising to you? Are you worried about those numbers? Did you have some response or kind of questions about them or reactions? Because when I saw them, I was like, oh my gosh, like we got so much to do. I need more hours in the day. Yeah. No reactions. Got a quiet crowd today.
There's a reaction in the chat. Somebody mentioned that they were shocking numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well,
I do have a comment. I mean, it's
thank
true
you.
that it's crazy. Even here at Gavilan, I mean, I just came on as the undocumented liaison back in September, and just our numbers dropped within the last 3 years by like 75% when it comes to our undocumented scholars here. And it's crazy. So, my goal is to be able to build that number up. And, we're slowly but surely getting the California DREAM Act, up the numbers up a little bit here. And, I'm actually going through a categorical run right now and doing a book grant, and we're at 56 undocumented scholars here right now, and those are just the ones that are not being captured. I know there's quite a few more, but the numbers are low, and it's kind of, and I know it's a lot of the students and the fears that they have, and having even trying to approach somebody about it. So, but yeah, that's what we're dealing with here at Gavilan College.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Thanks for letting us know. I think that it's true. There has been a drop in enrollment across the board, especially at community colleges, but also at the UC, CSUs, and privates. And I think that it's going to be hard for us to kind of pull students in that, that maybe stopped out for a little bit, but how can we help get that word out, I think, are some of the things that we're really looking at. And anybody else want to chime in and kind of like your report from the block?
I think shocking is the right word for me too. I expected with the new law in place now that would help aid, the increasing those numbers. I think one thing that has made me realize, just like personally as the point person here at my college and being the only person here, is that the need for maybe like more support so that we can increase our efforts in other ways to do maybe more outreaching and things like that. One thing I'm trying to do this year is actually provide grants to students that either submit a 2023-24 CADA or to meet with me to see if they're eligible, even if they can't submit one, and then they also receive a grant. So hopefully that'll help a little bit, but I think, yeah, I'm definitely shocked to hear that. I was thinking it was going to be a lot more,
Right.
but hopefully we can increase those numbers.
Yeah, I definitely, from doing the research with the California Dream Act data, I did see that the vast majority of students actually apply on like February 28th, March 1st, and March 2nd. So for all that we're doing being like October 1st, yay, let's get going. I do think that there's still a lot of work that we can do. There's still many students that are going to apply. So we appreciate your attention and energy here. I'm wondering if we have another Mentimeter, which we'd ask you to fill out, which is just basically saying like what challenges prevent your students from applying to or completing the California Dream Act? Like, where are you guys seeing it from here, from your perspective, in terms of what challenges prevent your students from applying to the California Dream Act application? And if you can just go to menti.com, you'll use code 433921. It's the same number as before, and it's just a second slide on there. But if you actually just go to that place, we would love to just hear from you. Like I heard Amarani saying that, a lot of it is just basically not having enough hands on deck to be able to reach out and do all the kind of outreach, right? Anthony's talking about how there's actually a reduced number of students on school, but they're pushing piece by piece. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing that are preventing your students from applying for the DREAM Act? I think information, awareness, like safety are all concerns. But we're hoping that you can help illuminate some of the other pieces of where that's going on from your perspective. I saw someone put up that it is this, the parents are not applying for taxes. I mean, if their parents haven't completed their taxes, having a safe space, right? Students are scared or don't understand the process. I definitely think that those are important. Afraid their answers might be shared with other entities such as ICE. That is a very important concern that students have, and there are a lot of federal and state protections, but how can we get that information out to students so that they know that straight up? Counselors and allies not being aware of a student's status and therefore cannot reach out proactively. And that's really important in terms of those pieces. And I think sometimes why it's important for us to just be more visible about our support that's out there, so that even students haven't talked about their status yet, that they're actually able to know that you might be a safe place and you have some information there. Another one's like, my students are newcomers and they've been in the US less than 3 years. I have a senior who got here last week and enough credits to graduate from his country of origin this May. And he's ineligible for AB 540. So we have some strategies we'll be talking about later on in terms of how individuals can actually go ahead and meet the eligibility for AB 540 right away, or how they might be able to participate in schools that are participating in that allow students who are 6 units or under to actually not have to pay resident fees. So for private schools, students can feel like CADA doesn't go far enough. And that so that's true, right? Like if you get your Cal Grant, it might not cover the full cost of attendance. Where are those pieces? Students are unaccompanied minors. They're scared of sharing information with someone they don't know. So true, right? Like how is it we start filling out the DREAM Act and you're asking all kinds of deep and intimate questions in terms of number of people in the household, like where are your parents, how much money they make, do they have a social security number, even though it's not required? Or people are fearful that they have to do that, or the parents are not in the country. So I definitely think that, thank you so much for sharing some of these different challenges that you're facing. I think that those are really important challenges that we all need to be working on, trying to make sure that we can address it. And then I think this other part is like students don't understand the process or think that they can only get the California Promise Grant, right? So that they're not even completing the California Dream Act application, and therefore they think it's safer maybe to apply just to the school. So we're going to touch on a lot of these different challenges as we go forward. And so just thank you again for sharing those challenges with us now. So in terms of some of the next steps that we are there, thank you for that temperature check. We do want to talk a little bit about this legislation. There's new legislation on the books, which is both for financial aid and for in-state tuition, which we talked about earlier, just a little bit about this all in for financial aid and for the DREAM Act, and all means everyone, right? So we want to make sure that everyone's applying. The purpose of this new law, AB 469, which came into effect in 2022 and is now for these high school seniors, is to maximize the number of students who apply for and receive federal and state financial aid without creating an undue burden, preventing students from graduating, like impacting their immigration status, and with full protection for student and parent data. And the state is working on creating this coordinated completion campaign. But as we can see from the numbers, there's still a lot more work to do, right? This is our first year, so I think it's going to take a little while for those wheels to start rolling with more ease. But it is important to really acknowledge the concerns of undocumented students and make sure that they're not having to come out in order to be able to receive financial aid. That when we're having the financial aid nights, or when schools are talking about having a FAFSA night, that we're working with our feeder schools as well as our school to make sure that we're talking about financial aid evenings, so that all can come in and that everyone can fill out the application without having to come out and be like, oh, DREAM Act students over here and FAFSA students over there. I do think it's really important to address the fear and safety. And there's been the CSAC just recently updated a letter that says that all of their information is that they're going to protect student information to the full extent of the law, and reminding students that there is federal law, FERPA, that there's also state law, the SB 54 and the Values Act, as well as the Attorney General's model policies that talk about that student information cannot be shared and that it needs to be protected, and that nobody can have access to that data and information without a student or parent's written consent. There is an option for students to opt out if they don't actually want to complete the financial aid application as a senior. But there's challenges that come out with that, because if they opt out, are they not going to fill out the application? Do they think that they cannot? How can we as colleges and universities be a safe place for those students to come, so that we can do outreach and say, we're doing a FAFSA or a DREAM application drive, and you don't have to come to our school to be able to participate in that FAFSA or DREAM application drive. Get that information out to feeder schools. And I also think that students now are really kind of struggling with, why should I even go to college if students don't have DACA, if students are worried about what they're going to do with their degree, if it's really complicated to move through. I think that it's really important for us to be able to have strong answers to be able to talk about this, and also to remind students that even if they don't have DACA opportunities, that they will be able to have entrepreneurship opportunities when they get out of school, and that we are constantly pushing for more of a comprehensive immigration reform, even if that feels out of reach at some times. I think it's definitely something that we need to continue to keep pushing for, and help students to realize that many of us move forward despite fear, which is not to dismiss students' fears or to say that my fears are equal to their fears, but thinking about how can we build more spaces for students to talk to each other and recognize that it is possible for them to be able to go to school, that it's fully legal for them to go to school, that they can receive financial aid, that they can receive all the support that the school offers, and not have themselves feel stigmatized basically just due to their immigration status. And I think, yes, it's really important, as Madeline put out, like make sure that family members and parents are also informed about these kinds of safety protections when you're doing outreach to your communities. We did put out a new guide, which is called All In for Financial Aid, and it just talks about using inclusive language, hosting FAFSA nights, making sure that you're recognizing the diversity of the community, making sure that you don't inadvertently out students, so not requiring them to reveal their status or identify which application they're using, never speaking openly about a student's status without their permission, and being aware of factors that might make it hard for students to actually ask for help. So these can include fear, family safety, lack of awareness of pathways to pursue higher education, as well as questioning some of those values. And so these are, we also have resources that are on here. So these tips are really to be, and resources to support undocumented students are hopeful that will allow you to create more of a safe environment, elevate state and federal protections for undocumented student data, and then replicate promising practices from other schools. There's promising practices in here where there are different schools that have talked about their FAFSA, instead of having a FAFSA night, they change it to a financial aid night. Instead of just having like a FAFSA form and a DREAM Act form, it's on the same page so that you could just flip over the document, and whether you get information about the FAFSA or the DREAM, login information or whatever you need, it's all on the same page. So it's not sort of like you get this information and you get that. And also we're thinking about how we hope that you'll take this resource and share it not only amongst yourselves, but with key campus departments, with the feeder schools that you're talking to, and with the community-based organizations that you're already in partnership with, or that you'd like to be in partnership with.
Nancy, there's a question in the chat if the letter that from CSAC and the Department of Education is available in other languages like Spanish.
Victoria, do you know the answer to that?
It's unfortunately not. I only know that it's in English right now.
But that's a really important point. And I think, Miguel, that's something that we can press for with the California Student Aid Commission, because especially if we're trying to give this to parents, like not only in Spanish, but other languages in terms of like Tagalog or Korean or other languages that people might need to be able to know that their students' information is going to be safe. So thank you for that.
I'm making a note on that
suggestion. Yeah. And I think it'd be helpful, Victoria, if you could take that back to your community. That would be great.
Definitely.
And as we just keep talking about, always making sure that language is really key. And not only is it in the language that you use, but also in the language that's in your websites, the language that's in your outreach applications, the language that's in your emails that go out. I know oftentimes there's a lot of automated emails now for income verification that just basically like if you've used a third party, it only talks about the FAFSA. Can we work with those organizations to actually say that there's income verification also for the California DREAM Act application? So making sure that our language is not just in one place, but sort of around the block, because I think that students that I've worked with are really looking for those clues. If they don't know what the DREAM Act is, then some people thought, oh, it's going to cause a lot of confusion if you say FAFSA or DREAM. I think it's really important to say both of those so you can make sure that you are at a space that will allow you to show that there are multiple opportunities for individuals to actually go forward and receive the financial aid that they need. And then this is just the opting out form. I'm not sure if you all have seen this. Probably if a lot of us are not in high schools, we're not working with this opting out form right away. But it's a bit complicated to actually do this opting out. Students have to be over 18 in order to be able to sign it. If they're under 18, their parents needs to sign it. And then if the counselor, if you're a counselor working at the high school and you've been working on trying to get that opting out form signed and it hasn't happened, then the counselor can actually sign that. I'm wondering if we have any high school individuals here that would be able to talk about their experiences in terms of working with the opt-out requirement. If anybody's here and wants to either put that in the chat or let us know sort of how that's been working. But we want to remember that even if a student opts out, they still can complete the application at a later time. So we've been trying to get this information into the hands of counselors so that they can find out about the CSAC office hours. They know about the Immigrants Rising DREAM Act drives that we are going to be hosting. They know that they can come to schools and colleges in their close areas, so that they'll be able to support undocumented students and getting the help that they need to be able to fill out a financial application, even if it feels a little bit scary to do that at school. Sweet. So we're seeing a couple things in the chat in terms of someone, let's see, Paola is saying, this is actually the first time I heard about the opt-out option. I'll need to follow up with my counselors in the district. So thank you so much, Paola. We really appreciate you doing that. And Mo was saying, it's good to know. I thought opt-out was forever, but it makes sense. So yeah, definitely not forever. And even if they opt out, they're just opting out of saying that they're not going to fill out the application through the school. And that's kind of just for tallying records, right? And in fact, they can still go and fill out that application on their own. And Natalie from Oakland Unified is saying, we give students 1 semester after graduation to come back to our counselors to complete their financial aid apps and college apps. So good. And so they're not even that way, they're just kind of giving students more time to actually be able to complete their financial applications or their college if they don't go to school right away. The thing that's really good about the Cal Grant also is that if an individual doesn't apply for their financial aid when they're a high school senior, they can apply up to 1 year later from that graduation and still be considered for a high school entitlement grant. So great work, Natalie. We're so glad that you guys are up to that on your campus. Sweet. So let me just kind of get my bearings in terms of where we're at with timing and pieces of things. And so I do want to just continue on a little bit in terms of, and then we'll take a short break. So just a few more minutes and then take a short break in terms of, this is the letter Madeline put into the chat, but the California Student Aid Commission promises to protect undocumented students and saying that they will work to the fullest extent of the law to protect all students that share their information through the California DREAM Act. And I was really excited to see that the director of the California Student Aid Commission, as well as the state superintendent, signed this. And Miguel, really great suggestion. We're going to advocate that this letter be translated so that other individuals who don't have English as their first language would be able to be aware of this. And also I want to talk a little bit about AB 540, because AB 540 is key to the California DREAM Act. As many as you already know, the California DREAM Act does require AB 540, but do your outreach materials mention this? And how about your counselors or your website? This information is super important to make sure that students are aware of this. And this year, there was actually an expansion of AB 540. AB 540, the first one was in 2001. There's a couple of subsequent expansions, but then in this year, in 2022, there's actually an additional expansion that took place. And I'll talk about that right now. So AB 540 was expanded with SB 1141. And SB 1141 expanded the SB 68 requirements, which removed the 2-year maximum of credits for the community college courses. So just as a quick reminder, AB 540 is 3 years of full-time of high school at a California high school, an adult school, or a California community college, both credit and non-credit courses. Or if students hurried up early, they could use their high school credits and elementary high school, 3 years of high school credits, as well as elementary and secondary school. So for someone who was speaking before that their student just came, if they happen to have, and they're going to graduate from high school with the high school credits, if they had elementary or secondary school, they could use that with their high school graduation and their high school credits to be able to have eligibility for AB 540. If not, they could go to an adult school or non-credit program and continue some of those efforts to be able to get the 3 years of high school necessary. So we used to have a quick guide, which was the AB 540 quick guide. We now have a quick guide to AB 540, which is the expanded in-state tuition in California. And I, for one, have always been like AB 540/SB 68, AB 540/SB 68. But we're trying to, with all of these different expansions, I think we're trying to talk more about AB 540, but recognizing it as an expanded AB 540. And the way that those 3 years of requirements used to work was that, you know, this is the 3 years of this is 3 years of full-time attendance. It used to be a maximum of the community college credits, only up to 2 years of attendance. But with the SB 1141, it actually makes it so that they remove that 2-year credit community college years of community college credits, and students can now use up to 72 semester credit units or 108 quarter credit units to be able to be eligible for AB 540. Before, they used to have an adult school, high school, or non-credit program. Now they can have all of their classes if they start directly at community college courses. And so I think the thing that's really important for this is for those of you who are at four-year universities, who are public and colleges and universities, how could you do a query of students who actually had gone to a community college and who are still classified as non-residents to see if they might be eligible now to resubmit a new affidavit based on the new law. This is really important to be thinking about. And so I think that that's just, and then in terms of like, how can students track eligibility? We have an AB 540 SB 68 attendance worksheet, which we're now calling the AB 540 worksheet, and it helps students actually calculate their attendance. The first year of attendance, did I do that in high school? Did I do that in adult school? Did I do that in my non-credit courses and my credit courses? And so they also can identify their degree and transfer requirements and get approved to pay resident fees by actually turning in their affidavit. And they'll make sure that we also want to make sure that we tell them that they should be applying for the California Dream Act application by March 2nd to be considered for maximum aid. I can see in this slide that I did not update this to actually take away those maximum of the 2 years. The AB 540 attendance worksheet, which Madeline is throwing in the chat, has been completely updated. It's useful for people to keep track of their progress and to use when they talk to their counselors about this information. So I think right now it's about 4:05. We're going to take a short break, just a 5-minute break, just to kind of have a bio break, take a stretch break, come back, grab a glass of water, and we'll be right here. I'll stay as well. If you have any specific questions, you can feel free to ask them to me now, but we'll be right back at 4:10. I do see a question right here, which says, a question related to CADA, not so much, but are students with TPS status able to pay in-state tuition, even if they do not meet AB 540 regulations? If a student meets the eligibility for the 3 years of high school, graduated from a California high school, and has the temporary protective status, it depends on, I would have to say it depends, Catherine. Can you actually just get back to me? I'm going to put my email in the chat just to get more clarity on the specifics of that, because my email is Nancy at Immigrants Rising, and I don't want to speak out of turn. When we come back, we're going to be hearing directly from Victoria about some of the common roadblocks to avoid and some of the tricks and stuff to make sure that if students submitted their incorrect application or forgot their PIN or need to do a name of date or birth date change, as well as some great reports that they can run. So we'll be back in just about 3 minutes. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back. We're glad that I hope you had a quick stretch. It was good just to kind of get up and move a little bit. So I'm going to get us started now with Victoria, and she's going to talk about some, oh, actually, I take that back. I'm going to have a quick few pieces around common roadblocks to avoid, and then I'm going to pass it to Victoria. I think the first part for me is really just thinking about the California Dream Act map and about the multiple steps that there are in terms of applying for the California Dream Act map. This is our 22-23 map. We actually have a map that is updated for the 23-24, but the steps are the same. And I think even if you cannot see every single step, from what you can see is there's a lot of different steps, right? So I think before I was a financial aid counselor, I used to just be all about like, get in that application, not recognizing that there was all these other things that needed to be done to make sure the student actually got their money in their hand. So the phases are color coded. The first phase is actually filling out the Dream Act application. And CSAC needs to estimate the family contribution and send the Dream Act application to all schools, as well as select random students for income verification. And they do that only if the application is considered valid. If not, the application is not going to move forward. And we'll talk to you about how your students can make sure to see if the application is actually a valid application and moving forward through the process. The second step is actually just making sure that the GPA is received by the California Student Aid Commission. Now, high schools send that in, CSU send that in, UC send that in, CCC send that in, and privates as well. The thing is that not all the time does the actual GPA match up with the student. So Victoria is going to give us some tips and tricks about how to match those GPAs, but that can be a big problem. Phase 3 is really like students going through income verification. And we have a resource about income verification, which Madeline's going to put in the chat. I think it's complicated. What about students whose parents don't file taxes? What about students who file taxes, but might be using a different social security number? It's a very complicated and delicate process. But there are like how many people are in the household, pieces and such, who's a dependent and independent. We talk about all of that in the income verification worksheet. And this is something that we're sharing these resources, not just so that you have them. We hope that you'd be willing to and excited to actually link to our resources on your website so that you guys don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just link to resources that'll be super helpful for your students. And this last step is making sure that they are aware, have their affidavit in file, they know whether the costs are going to be, it's no longer required to fill out the selective service, but it is required for students to be in the proper units and such to make sure that they're actually going to receive all financial aid they have eligibility for. So this map, I think, is just a great guideline for people to think about. If this is a maze and students get caught in the maze, what steps can they take to make sure that they actually get to the end when the money gets paid for their tuition? And if there's a balance that's left over, it gets sent to the student. So really important pieces to kind of consider. And remembering the phases. For those students of yours that have actually finished the California Dream Act application, it's key to make sure that they actually follow these different steps. And if you take a look at the link that our comms person put together in terms of make sure that the parents sign the application, double check that there's no errors going on, review the student portal to make sure that each school you've been accepted to, complete your income verification if they get selected, monitor that web grants for students, make sure they accept their financial aid through the students portal, and call the school with any questions. They'll probably be calling you, right? Like, hey, what am I going to do? But I think that this is really important for people to know. Also to make sure that their affidavit gets put in by the deadline. Each school has different deadlines, and make sure that they're registered for their classes through their student portal. So how can we help students know not only is it that they need to apply, but then make sure that they're following up on the different steps to make sure that they actually get all the financial aid that they have eligibility for. And then in terms of the last piece is just, we do have a resource for students who are citizens, but whose parents are undocumented. And I think that this is really helpful because students who are citizens definitely have the eligibility to apply for the FAFSA and receive federal and state aid. but it's important that they know that the parents should put zeros for their social security numbers, that when they put that, the FAFSA is going to ask them to, are you sure that's true? And if they just say yes, boom, yes, that it'll actually move forward to the next step. It's also really important that parents who are undocumented cannot use an FSA ID, but they can use a parent signature page. And that parent signature page can get mailed to the FAFSA, or sometimes they can bring it to the actual school that they're attending to, and the school can send it to the FAFSA in the sky, or the federal student aid organization, Department of Education. And so these are really important things to be thinking about for students who are citizens. And also, as you're a financial aid counselor, are you running queries to say, hey, what should I actually be doing to make sure that a student might be a citizen, but they're classified as a non-resident? And also just confused that sometimes students who are citizens are classified as non-residents when they could actually be eligible for AB 540. I think oftentimes AB 540 is used as a code word for undocumented, but in fact, many students who are citizens, legal permanent residents, are actually using AB 540 as well. So these are just some tips of the trade, and I'm glad, Mo, that you're thinking that, yeah, these steps are not widely known. So how can we do more to support that? Because there's thousands and thousands of students who are citizens with undocumented parents. So I've been talking a lot. I'm really excited now to be able to pass it over to Victoria, who's going to talk just a little bit more about some of the tips that we all should be up to make sure that students are receiving their financial aid, or avoid the pitfalls that will prevent them from getting their aid.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. So one of the really important things is when a student does submit their DREAM Act application, they will receive this confirmation page screen. And it's super important for them to review it and double check if there's any action needed. So you can see that section 1, action needed. And then, this one says no further action. So that's good. No resolution needed. And then they also, if they are a dependent for financial aid, and they have to put their parent information on, super important they remember to have their parent sign. So on this confirmation page, there is the parent signature button. So if the parent's sitting with them, they can do it right then. If not, there is on the landing page of the DREAM Act application a separate section for parent signature, and we have a screenshot of that in a few slides. But yeah, so just really making sure that they're checking this page. They'll also get an email from CSAC, and then just having that follow-up. The student isn't done right when they submit. There still could be some follow-up needed. All right, and then we do have this little cheat sheet. So just how to resolve some of the common errors. We do see that a lot of students will have different name variations. So if they have 2 last names and maybe on the application they only put 1 last name, and then the school uploads their GPA, so their high school uploads their GPA with both of their last names, then that could cause it not to match. So just double checking on that. And we do have several different student forms. So some of these updates can be student driven, where they can submit a name or date of birth change request form. So that brings me to the next one. The date of birth is listed incorrectly. We want to make sure it's month, day, year. And then missing parent signature. If it does require a parent signature, then they'll need to sign either on that confirmation page or going back onto the landing page. I'll touch on the next 2 errors, I think, in a separate slide. So just to kind of keep it moving, there's the student's GPA upload information. Again, it just needs to make sure that it is matched, and a student can double check on that in web grants so they can actually see if their GPA was matched to their application or not. If there's no expected family contribution, that's the EFC, which will show in the top right corner of the confirmation. That's a red flag right away that something's wrong, that the system wasn't able to calculate an EFC. So that's a huge indicator. So just double checking that, and then following up if there is no EFC to see what's missing. And then not submitting the CADA, the DREAM Act application by the deadline. So with our DREAM Act applicants, they can only qualify for state financial aid. Our priority deadline for most of our programs is March 2nd. However, we still encourage students to submit regardless, even if they've missed the deadline, because there are other types of aid available. Many scholarships will require an application on file with the financial aid office also. So always important to still submit no matter what. All right, so here's the name and date of birth change. So if there is that name variation, either the colleges can edit it, they can go into the DREAM Act correction screen in Web Grants. So if you have Web Grants access and you are working with your Dreamer students, then you can complete this. And then the students can actually complete, it's the change request form, name, date of birth, change request form. We call it the G19 for short. It's the grant form G19. And then if the date of birth is listed incorrectly, again, same process. So name and date of birth will need to be done either on the college's end or the student can initiate that process. And I see Madeline just put the link to that form in the chat. All right, so these were the two errors that I kind of skipped over because I knew I had this slide coming up. So submitting an incorrect application. This is really important. We had that question come through the chat as well. So there's a few different situations. There's a situation where the student definitely just accidentally completes the wrong one. They're not sure which one they are eligible for. They don't realize that there's two different applications. So maybe they complete the FAFSA instead of the CADA, or they complete the CADA instead of the FAFSA. The very first step is that you want that student to complete the correct one and submit it. And then at that point, the college's financial aid office will submit the G55 form to CSAC, to us. And then we can take a look at it, review it, and kind of do that swap in our system. We can switch over the student to the correct application. The other end of that is the example that we had in the chat where the student does complete the right one. So they do the CADA for their current status, and then they gain permanent residency, become eligible for the FAFSA. And so at that point, same process, we want the student to complete the FAFSA and then have the G55 conversion form submitted on behalf of the student. Other cases that we see is if the student submitted it for the wrong year, same thing, have them submit for the correct year and then reprocess. Submitting a duplicate application, that can get a little tricky. So making sure we can go in and delete out the one that doesn't need to be there. And then that last bullet point, yeah, gains permanent residency or citizenship. And then with the parent PIN, so this is how parents will electronically sign the DREAM Act application. It's a lot better because they can do it all online, whereas with FAFSA, if the parents don't have a social security number, they will have to go through that paper signature process. With the DREAM Act, there is an online method, so they can either do it right from that confirmation page as we looked at, or this is how they will get to it from the landing page of the DREAM Act application. They'll click sign the application, and then they do have to request a parent PIN. If the parent has forgotten that PIN number, then there is an option that says, so on that drop down, you can see, do you already have a parent PIN? There is an option that says, yes, but I forgot my PIN. It sounds like sometimes that doesn't always work. So then you can just have them go to no, and then they'll get a new parent PIN to sign, and they just enter in their student's demographic information, and that's how it pulls up their student's application, and then they can sign that for them.
Victoria, I have a question. I don't know if it's still the same, but it used to be that the parent had a PIN for each student. So if I had 3 children, at FSAID, I just have one and I'd sign all applications. But with the DREAM Act application, it previously would be like I'd have one PIN for one student, one PIN for another. Do you know if that's changed or is that still the same?
I haven't heard that, and I actually haven't necessarily thought about that specific situation. I know that, like, as you can see in the screenshot, it is asking for each student's demographic information to like look up the application. So I'm not sure if the parent can have the same PIN number.
Thank you.
That's a good question though. Yeah, I can look into that. And we will be working closely as we get more information. I don't want to confuse anyone, but we do have that FAFSA simplification coming down the line. And so we are working closely to figure out how the CADA can improve and morph with the simplification coming up as well. So good to think about that. I'll take a note of that as well.
Thank you.
All right, and then next up we have web grants for students. So this is the next step and where we really hope that students can become their own financial aid advocates. I think we tend to put so much emphasis on just getting the application submitted, and then now we are trying to remember to focus on the web grants for students account. Because if a student doesn't make this account and then they go to their college in the fall and they don't get their money right away, it's probably because they didn't make their web grants for students account and didn't do some of the pending items. When a student lists colleges on their application, our system will take the first Cal Grant eligible school and kind of put the student on that school's roster to determine eligibility for Cal Grant. But then if the student doesn't end up going to that first school that they listed, they need to go into their Web Grants for Students account and let us know by doing a school of attendance change. And at that point, then our system can reprocess and send it to the correct school's roster. So very important that they are making this account. I know it's another thing to keep track of. Luckily, we did update our system and now our CADA filers can use the same username and password. So that can streamline it a little bit. And they are able to log in about 24 hours. I want to say it might be immediately, but probably wait 24 hours just to be safe to log in. Whereas for our FAFSA filers, they do have to wait still 7 to 10 days because it's going to go through the federal central processing system first before it gets sent to our system. So a little bit of a delay there, but for our CADA filers, they can log in right away and kind of track the status of their application. Here are some screenshots of what that's going to look like. So we do have different color-coded cards, little tiles here. And like for this example, it does say award status pending in this orange yellowy color. So then when you click show details, it opens up this window. And then for this particular student, he has to certify his graduation date. And so once he just certifies that he's graduated high school, then that will be able to update in our system and eventually it will turn the award status to green and have everything as completed. All right, so looks like we're gonna keep going or?
We took our break already, so we kind of took our break early.
Okay, cool. So I just want to point out 2 different spots where you can receive or you can view resources for the DREAM Act application on our homepage, so csac.ca.gov. We have lots of different web pages within that website that you can get information and resources for your students if you're a high school counselor or work with high school seniors. And then also we have a college hub. And we also have, that's where all of our trainings are located. So you can register for any of our trainings. And then on the actual landing page of the DREAM Act application, there's an information and resources tab up on that black toolbar. And so you can click that and get more resources there as well. So if you are helping students as they're applying, you can always check that out with them. All right, and then we do have a brand new financial aid application status report this is geared towards anyone who's working at a high school. So if you are at a high school and you have web grants access, then you can start working this report, and it can be super beneficial for your outreach purposes with AB 469. So we developed this for AB 469. It is in a CSV format, which is super exciting. We know that's been highly requested. Our other reports are still pretty clunky at this point. We do apologize for that. But this one is pretty good. So you can download it in CSV, add those filters, and then be able to see where your students are in the process of applying, and conduct some targeted outreach. So if you know that a certain cohort of students just still need to submit an application, you can send out an email to them and include links and to the applications, maybe your upcoming Cash for College. You can link our Cash for Colleges, anything that can promote getting that application submitted. And then another great filter is it will actually show students that have errors on their application. So an error on an application is almost the same as not submitting an app, because they won't be considered for financial aid until it's been resolved. So that's a really great targeted outreach as well, to remind students to log back in and let them know you're not done yet. It's not fully processed because something's holding it up. So we do have an overview video on our YouTube page. I did just record part 2, so that's up there as well. So definitely, if you have access, if you are working at a high school and you have web grants access, if you don't, definitely request web grants access, and then you can start working with this report.
Victoria, is there any way for individuals who are not in high schools, but maybe at the college and working directly with students who are applying for financial aid, but not in the financial aid office, to get this kind of access to a financial aid status report, or it's only for high schools?
I'd have to follow up. I believe it's only for high school web grants users. At the college level, like for the college financial aid office, I'm not sure if it's going to be available, because it was designed for AB 469, so really just focused on pulling in high school senior data. And then I know we've had questions about how community, like CBOs, community-based organizations, can also support efforts on doing some of this outreach. And so if you are able to partner with a high school, that could be a good way to have delegate and use outside resources. But yeah, unfortunately, it is at this point still just with the high school senior data.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right, and then another slide here that's targeted more for the high school counselors or anyone with access. I believe at the college level, this could still be something that you're keeping tabs on, but making sure that your GPAs are matching to your student financial aid applications, because that is for Cal Grant consideration. They do need a financial aid application connected to their GPA. That's the other component to being Cal Grant eligible, not just income, but also GPA. So editing and matching, if they did not find each other in the system, maybe there was a misspelling of the name, a different date of birth, different addresses. There's lots of different reasons why it might not match automatically. We do offer some webinars about the editing and matching process, so you can check out our training website, and we also have a pre-recorded version on our YouTube channel as well. We have some social media toolkits. These are really great because you can download the images, and then we have sample captions that you can just copy and paste for your social media channels and push it out, maybe customize it a little bit and then push it out onto your social media accounts. And then we also have all-in resources. So with AB 469, we're branding it as all-in for FAFSA CADA. And so we do have some flyers and brochures that you can download, and please use it. We want you to use it. It's not, plagiarizing, or it's not copyrighted. We want you to take it all and make it as easy as possible to advertise to your audience. All right, and then here's just a screenshot of our website where we have lots of our DREAM Act resources. So we do have the PDF versions of the applications. These are really helpful if you are helping a student, maybe over the phone, they're on their computer, but you can't quite pull it up, or even just in your office to have it printed out. I reference this on just on my computer all the time if I'm volunteering for a webinar, Cash for College. And then we also have that in Spanish. So that is one of our resources. Luckily, we do have it in Spanish. We are aware, and I'm actually composing an email now to see if we can get that letter in other languages. And then we have some FAQs, a parent signature form, and then just like those common issues, and also that name and date of birth change request form. All right, and then one last slide. I actually just did a webinar this morning about our DREAM Act Service Incentive Grant. We call it DSIG for short. And so this is a really awesome new program. It's been around for a couple years now, but we've had some massive improvements to it in this last state budget. So this is a program where CADA filers who are eligible for the Cal Grant B can receive up to $4,500 by performing community or volunteer service hours. So luckily, they don't need work authorization for this program. It's community volunteer based, and then they're receiving a stipend through this award. And so they have to perform 300 hours of community or volunteer service. And we have removed the proration. So that means it doesn't matter if they're enrolled half-time, three-quarter time, or full-time, they'll still receive the same amount of money for doing those 300 hours. They do have to be at least half-time, but then they can still get up to that $4,500. So super exciting. It is a very underutilized program right now, which is pretty heartbreaking because our team has put in a lot of effort. Our coordinator for this program literally built it from the ground up once it got passed in the state budget. So if you can promote it as much as you can, I think either maybe we've already put the links in, but I'll make sure to put the links for the social media toolkit. And yeah, there's lots of different opportunities for these students to volunteer, and it is a student-driven application process. So if you are able to identify students who might be eligible and encourage them to apply, that can really help with increasing our numbers. Oh yeah, Madeline put in the perfect. So there's the link for the social media toolkit for DSIG.
Yeah. Wow, Victoria, that's a lot of great information. I'm just going to stop here and see if anybody has any questions. I really appreciate you kind of going through those different pitfalls that students might find, as well as some of the resources and reports that and toolkits and such that the California Student Aid Commission has put out. I wanted to just stop before we go on to the last bit of our presentation to see if anybody has any specific questions for CSAC. Because CSAC's in the house.
Yes, and I know it's a lot of information, so thanks for hanging in there.
Okay, well, if you have any questions as we move forward, please feel free to put them in the chat for everyone or just share them specifically with Victoria. We really appreciate you being here and sharing that detailed information. So go on and give another shout out for DSIG. As Madeline said, there's about 1,000 spots that are still there. If this money is not used through the Streamer Service Incentive Grant volunteers, it turns into the money does actually start to fund some of the DREAM loans. So we'd much rather, as I'm sure all of you would as well, help our students get that money through a volunteer opportunity where they're developing some professional development opportunities as opposed to getting it through a loan. So I also want to just highlight that Immigrants Rising also has a social media toolkit. We have visuals that are specific for undocumented students that were created by our undocumented leads. We have downloadable visuals, sample tweets, Instagram and Facebook posts. We even have sample emails or text messages that you could just send out to your students and be like, hey, did you apply today? Did you apply? Is this information going to be available? you know, here's this organization, here's this Dream Act drive that's coming out. So make sure that you can use some of these downloadable visuals right away. And in terms of, has there ever been any talk about the Dream Loan being available at the community college? Erica, I have not heard at all about loan money being available at the community college. The way the Dream Loan came through was just specifically at the CSU and the UC based on tuition. And there was some additions to the Dream Act loan this year in terms of improving the loan counseling that took place, as well as trying to put in some opportunities for loan forgiveness, similar to the FAFSA loan forgiveness or the federal loan forgiveness, but I have not heard about any rumblings about that coming out at the community college. Also wanted to point out our educational resource binder. If you've been like, wow, there's so many cool resources that Immigrants Rising have, I didn't even know, you can get your own educational resource binder for free. It's downloadable, and you can either print it yourself for free, you can download it and just, you know, keep it as I keep it right on my favorites so that I can just get right to the resources that I need. There's all these different sections: educators picks, understanding the undocumented student experience, in-state tuition and residency, the California Dream Act. Madeline worked on some great guides around the CSU and UC applications, for which we update each year. That specific for the undocumented students. We have lots of information about the scholarships that are available. If students aren't eligible for AB 540, they can still apply for scholarships to be able to go to school. And we have hundreds and even thousands of scholarships that are on our scholarship database. And then we also have some institutional practices that would be super helpful. If you want to improve your website, we have a great website guide. If you want to increase your task force at the college or university, we can help you with that. The guides that we highlighted around Black and undocumented student support is there as well. And then we have a whole section around FERPA and student safety and career and income generating opportunities, because we do know that lots of students are thinking about how is it that once I get my degree, I'm actually going to be able to earn my income if I don't have work authorization through DACA. And then in terms of if another place that would be great, if you're not ready to go for the whole big old binder, I do think this quick guide to college access for undocumented students is super helpful. It's got information about AB 540, information about the California Dream Act and the steps and tools to apply, scholarships that don't require proof of citizenship, as well as a building your scholarship essay worksheet, which can be really helpful. The map, which is the CCOP's undocumented student resource map. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that before, but if I just go to download this guide and I go to the CCCOP's California Undocumented Student Resource Map, this map actually has information listed for colleges and universities throughout the state, for UCs, CSUs, CCCs, and independent colleges. And if you just click on any of those different links, it'll bring you to, this is College of the Siskiyous, where they're located, if they have a website, contact information. Anybody that has a star actually has an undocumented student resource center, so definitely thinking about that. But the quick guide is just a great resource to have in your physical office or link on your website, so that all information is just easily available for students in one spot. And then we do have a couple of Immigrants Rising Dream Act drives coming up. CSAC also has office hours. This is where students can get one-on-one support and just get questions to their answers to their questions. And we also have created this Getting Help with the California Dream Act Spring 2023 schedule, which has the links to this information as well, and which Madeline can just throw into the chat. And there is, and the CSAC office hours. Victoria, can you just talk a little bit about what that's like? In terms of the Dream Act drives, we're going to be having people who have specialized knowledge working directly with undocumented students, financial aid counselors. CSAC's going to be there, undocumented student support. So if you have students who need last minute support, definitely hit us up. That's going to be on February 23rd, March 1st, and March 2nd from 4 to 6. They can sign up at those bit.lys. But Victoria, what are those office hours like and how helpful are they?
Yeah, so the office hours we started because we heard that people were needing a time to just drop in and ask a quick question. So I've been hosting them. I've had some of my colleagues on my training team also join, and they haven't been super well attended. So please register. We've got a couple more weeks left that we'll be offering them, and we're there during that hour just on Zoom. So if you pop in and ask any questions that you may have, or maybe about a specific student situation. That's kind of the intention is, I have this one student who, and then we can work through that situation with you.
Sweet. Great idea. Yeah. So definitely please help spread the word. And then we just want to take this last little bit to talk about how it is that you can put this into practice. So thank you so much that you've been here throughout this time. We are asking you either to use this Mentimeter, because we're all about the Mentimeters today, and see like kind of what struck you from these insights and information, or what's one step that you're going to take that you found out about today that you're taking back to your college, to your high school, to your university, to your community-based organization, to increase support for undocumented students in terms of being able to make sure that more students are applying and more students are actually going to be eligible for the aid. So please go ahead and fill that out. Or if you'd like to, we'd love to hear from you directly. You can just unmute yourself and tell us like what's one thing that you heard about today that you're like, wow, I want to make sure that I'm going to take that forward. Would anybody be willing to share that with us? We'd love to hear from you. There's only a few minutes left in the presentation. What's something that struck you today that you're like, wow, I didn't know about that, or I didn't know about that resource, or I'm super glad that I'm going to be able to move forward with this information?
This is Natalie from Redstone and Oakland Unified. One thing that really stood out to me that I didn't, at least I wasn't aware of or remember from other trainings, was that a student can turn in a FAFSA as soon as their status changes and doesn't have to wait to the following application year. And so, that means I'm going to start calling a lot of our alum and let them know like, hey, I was aware your status changed, submit right away. Right. Versus assuming they're going to get that help at a community college, or they're going to, try to do it on their own.
That's great. Great idea, Natalie. Yeah. And if there's that, if students are confused about it, there is a link on our FAFSA versus DREAM application that actually links to the change of information if they can't find that on the CSAC website. So great times for them to be thinking about that. Anybody else? Couple people wrote in that all the resources were invaluable. They weren't aware of the SB 1141 expansion, or like they got new details and information about the AB 469. So thank you so much for those of you who chimed in on the Mentimeter. If anybody else has something else, the numbers for sure, that was shocking. At the end of it, so happy to see how much help there is for undocumented students. Access is getting better. So yeah, it is getting better. There's still more we need to do, but I'm excited that we are all here today, definitely committed to making sure that there are more resources and more information for undocumented students. So I am going to ask if you could please, before you go, fill out this short evaluation. We want to make sure that we are getting the information that you need to you. If there's things that you could do, you'd like for us to do better. If there's areas you're like, wow, that was so important, like things that we could, more concrete support that we could provide. How can we get the resources that we have into your hands and into the hands of your students, onto your websites, with all the individuals across your campus who are supporting undocumented students? We'd love to have you just take a few minutes and fill out that application, that evaluation today, so that we know what it is that we can do next time to make sure that we're meeting the needs of you and the needs of your students. While you're filling out that application, I do want to put up contact information for Victoria and for myself. And also if you have any questions or comments, we still want to hear from you. Please make sure that you tell us, specific questions that you have. My email is Nancy@Immigrants Rising. Victoria's is vvixney@csac.ca.gov. You can follow us on social media. And I'm sorry, I forgot to put the social media of the California Student Aid Commission on there. But you can also follow them on Facebook as well as on Instagram. Victoria, do you remember those? Do you want to throw those into the chat maybe?
Yeah, let me.
And I apologize for missing that on this slide.
That's okay. Let me see if I can find like our link tree, the best way to.
Oh, cool, link trees, yeah. So please fill out the evaluation. Please let us know if we can be of support to you in these next couple of weeks. In the rest of the year, upcoming to the next year, we're here. We want to support you. We want to support your students. So thank you so much for all of your time, for your energy. And if anybody has any questions and would like to just ask them one-on-one, I can stay until 5. Otherwise, we're giving you back a few minutes of your day, and we just thank you for all that you're doing and for the support that you have for your students.